There we go. I had meant to do that. Okay, so we've received proposals. Those are being processed, and $500,000 will be given away in 2024. And the new program, which was to set aside of $150,000 to support division conventions. The assets of the foundation, if you don't know, are around $8 million. So, you think about the ARRL, and many people think ARRL is QST and maybe a few other things, but I like going through what the ARRL has accomplished. Looking at the year 2023, of course, we had the volunteers on the air operating event. The Clean Signal Initiative Working Group came up with performance standards for CW, IMD, composite noise, and so on, that manufacturers are actually accepting. So we've made a difference. These will become IEEE standards that will improve your ability to communicate and lessen the chances of transmitters interfering with your transmissions. They had 5 teachers' institutes. There were 65 teachers, 95% licensing rate. The National Traffic System letter was launched. Of course, more digital content in the online QST. ARRL became part of SafeCon, so now we're an official part of the group that sets the standards for emergency communications. We received $2 million in grants for scholarships, club grants, and equipment from the ARDC. We represented amateur radio at World Radio Conference 23. There were over 7,500 VE sessions, and the board approved a youth licensing fee grant program. So normally, instead of paying $15, youth under 18 will only pay $5 for their testing, and they get reimbursed for their $35 license fee. 401 young people were served by this and saved over $18,000. We had a meeting last July. For one thing, we did associate student memberships. They were introduced, and they're free. So full-time students aged 21 and younger now are able to join the ARRL for free. Life memberships are back. Here's the prices. You probably heard about that. We also accepted the Strategic Plan Committee report, and Mr. Minster may want to speak more about that. It provides a 3-year strategy for the ARRL. The board authorized continued work to flesh out the strategy. The elements are to develop the next generation of radio amateurs, looking forward to the fact that we've got to engage young people to keep this hobby alive, healthy, and going. The elements are to develop the next generation of radio amateurs, inspire and educate youth, especially using technology, serve members, drive growth through technology, invest in upgrades and additions to the IT platform, and develop new sources of revenue. Lots of good work. We created the Information Technology Advisory Committee, the ITAC, and this is to help ARRL improve its IT systems by involving board members with reasonable amount of IT experience and bringing in experts from the field in particular areas to help us do things right. The Logbook of the World Maintenance Committee was also moved under ITAC. Advocacy, expand the commitment to hams who have difficulty, limitations in building stations, whether that's through the covenants and restrictions of where they live or other limitations. Find out ways to help them, whether it's a remote station, whether it's stations that are invisible to those on the inside, but more than just the legislative attempts we've been making. Trademark protection, requested the CEO to report on actions that are being taken to protect ARRL trademarks. That is, people using ARRL as if we sanctioned them and actually didn't. Governance study. The ARRL is over 100 years old. We're an old organization. And the structure that we live under was set up 100 years ago. And maybe it's time to look at that. Maybe there's better ways to organize ourselves. Maybe there's better ways to represent ourselves in the field organizations. This is a long-term study. There's not going to be a result very quickly, and members will be very involved as this gets put, if anything comes out of it, for things that are put in place. The director workbook. This is one motion that I wrote because the director workbook is, if you've read it, if you ever need some help going to sleep, I suggest reading it. It's very inconsistent in the way it's written. There are things that are policy that haven't been reviewed by the board that ought to be. So we're taking a hard look at rewriting it. And I head that committee. We're going to have roll call votes on all votes that involve governing documents, such as changing the bylaws. They'll require roll call votes. And the next board meeting is in January 2025. The good news, and I keep saying that, is we're very fortunate. We have an effective, innovative, caring, and deeply dedicated CEO in David Minster, NA2AA. We have a board aimed at strengthening the ARRL. It's a board that's not hard to take a look at, not afraid to take a look at organization, finance, members. You've seen some of the results. Some of the decisions have been very uncomfortable, but they've strengthened the ARRL. I think things are looking up. I want to quickly mention that Dave Proper couldn't make it tonight, but he's been busy too. He's the chair of the historical committee, and they've been curating their collection. Some of the items that are excess, you can find them on the ARRL, I should say, live auction now. They're working on updating committee process procedures, and the virtual museum, unfortunately, was delayed because of all the work going on to respond to the cyber attack. He's on the Program and Service Committee, and his particular assignment is to look over the guidelines and processes for ARRL awards. He's on the Band Planning Committee, and he's been active in collegiate outreach. And as a matter of fact, he's working closely with St. Louis University and the Missouri University of Science and Technology, and they enrolled their first associate student member for free. So I just want to make sure you all know we're here to help. Here's my contact information. Here's Dave's contact information. And if there's anything we can do for you, if you have trouble with an ARRL subscription or something that you're involved with amateur radio that needs some help, please call us, email us. We're here to help. That's the formal part of the presentation. So I thank you all for listening. And at this point, I would like to go to our section managers and see if they have anything that they would like to add. Let me start with Ron. Ron, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, I see a few Kansans here tonight. That's always a good thing. I know that the section news has been non-existent this summer, but I'm sure they'll get that back in line, and you'll see what's going on across Kansas in a broader manner. Art, thank you for putting this on tonight.
Delighted to have you here, Ron. Delighted to have everybody here tonight. Lee, would you like to say anything?
Is this the appropriate time to bring up discussion, or do we wait for that?
Well, I think we'll do an open, there'll probably be discussion as Rick and David talk. We'll have an open discussion at the end, but go ahead, Lee.
All right. Yeah, I think your presentation is so spot on. There's so many great things going on at ARRL, Teachers Institute, you name it. It's, very positive. The one issue that keeps coming up more often than others is the separation of QST from membership. We can talk about that later. A plug for the field services in terms of dealing with membership. If we support the field services, we support member services. So again, when discussion comes up, I'd be happy to chime in on those topics.
Sounds good. Thank you, Lee. Let's see, Matt, are you here? Cecil, would you like to say anything?
Sure. First off, glad you're having this. Thank you. I'm like you said earlier, it's kind of due for one. It's nice. Mainly what I've been doing, keeping the ARRL front and foremost with all of our clubs and all of our members and stuff. They realized that, what happened to us was a tragedy. They realized that it was a violation, of all kinds of things, not just the law. So they're very supportive. We've kept it up. I've kept them as informed as I could. And, we have a very high, whatever you want to call it, respect in Missouri for the ARRL and what they've been doing and getting things back together. They understand, they have the patience, and they're in full support of it everywhere I'm going. And the people I deal with are so to say that isn't just them. Oh well, they're just glad handed. They really are. They really are. And then the second thing is, I have unofficially, not as an ARRL rep, but it seems like I keep getting all the calls. Put together several response teams to go out to North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, down to Florida, and the vast majority of the people who are going are ARRL members. And so even though they're going under ministries and other things like that, not as an actual ARRL activity, I want to say Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, all of our states are in there helping people. So I couldn't be prouder to be part of this division. I really couldn't. Our people are doers. Our people are thinkers, and they don't quit. So a lot of that has come a long way, Art, since you took over. I'm not saying the other directors were bad. This is not a pat on the back. This is just a fact. These folks believe in the direction that we're going now. They were very disappointed in the old direction. They're getting behind everybody. And I want all of you who are division, CEOs, I want you all to understand that we are behind you now, and it's getting better and better and better. So thank you all for taking the time to even do what you do. And, let's just all work together and we get this ship floating high in the water. So
Thank you very much, Cecil. I appreciate the kind words. Well, with that, let me invite David Minster to speak. David, would you like the floor?
Sure. Thank you very much, Art. I'm I wouldn't say fresh back, but I'm back from having spent the weekend in Northern California at Pacificon, where I was able to meet with literally hundreds of members that came through the ARRL booth. We had a very, very positive ARRL forum yesterday. And the approach I took, which is I offered this approach to Art, and I think we're going to change the approach this evening. The way that I approached the ARRL forum is I spoke for about an hour. And when I was done speaking, there were only 2 questions. And the reason was because I took everything from the 2 days of talking to members and answering questions and merged it into my forum presentation so that everybody could hear the answers that the few members that had walked up to speak to me about had heard. But let me just talk for a minute about a couple of important concepts that came out of Pacificon that I'd like to share with you. The first thing that I think a lot of people don't understand, or maybe it's just not so obvious, but one of the most important aspects of amateur radio has to do with the community that we've created. And it wasn't so long ago that you never even saw the face of the friends that you had made on the air. These were people that maybe you had skeds with, or you were on nets with, or they were common call signs in your especially in your VHF contests where you tend to work the same people every single year, right? But today, through the use of things like this, our ability to get together via Zoom, where we get with mail reflectors and with social media groups like on Facebook, the sense of community within amateur radio is extremely strong, and it's extremely important. And once you understand that, you begin to recognize foundationally how critical that is to today's young people. Now, I was licensed in the late 1970s, well, mid 70s, I guess. And my school had an absolutely fabulous advisor, a guy by the name of Don Lawshy, W2DL, who is a silent key now. Just recently, a few weeks ago, a gentleman that I graduated high school in '79. This gentleman graduated from the same high school in 1966, and he devoted his life, his career, to teaching at Cooper Union. He came up to see me at headquarters so that we could spend an hour or so remembering Don Lawshy, and how important he was to both of us, not just from an amateur radio perspective, but class of '79. But I mean, he really helped us find our passion for things for this other gentleman. It was teaching. For me, it was a love of math and getting a degree in engineering. And those advisors, for those of us who were in high school in the '60s and '70s and maybe on into the mid '80s, were critical. And those advisors built within our high schools a community, and that community was a radio club. And now you were meeting, if you were a senior, you were meeting sophomores that you wouldn't necessarily meet, but you were bringing them into the club, and you weren't just another, fellow amateur radio operator in the club. You became friends, and you became somebody that student could call for advice on school, God forbid, advice on girls, whatever that was. But we built that community together, and some things happened along the way that again are sort of foundational to where we are today, and that is that those teachers, those advisors, aged out in the 1980s and retired. And those high schools were only too happy to take back the room that was devoted to the radio station and get that ugly antenna off the roof and sort of move on with life. And then, mom and dad had cable TV in the house, and along comes, a cable modem. And now kids are getting access to high-speed internet in their homes. My son, when he was growing up, he had so many instances of AOL instant messaging and other things up on the screen. It looked like air traffic control, right? And so that's how he spent his evenings. And then, parents are only too happy today, to come along and spend over $1,000 on a smartphone for their kids. Well, when I was in high school, my first used car cost $1,400. So today you've got kids that have no advisors. They do everything over the internet, and they have these smartphones that have communications products that allow them to create their own groups and their own communities. But the thing that's been lost that we see is that landing place for many of those kids who may be gifted in math or science that get singled out as being geeks, they actually wind up being bullied by the very technology that all these kids are holding in their hands. So it is going to be difficult for us to bridge back over that digital divide by just reaching out to young people. And the strategy that's in place is to rebuild a network of inspired advisors to get the teachers the tools that they need and the ongoing support that they need to build out these programs in their schools. And we're seeing the fruit of that labor. I don't know if you took notice of it in the ARRL news, but one of our Teacher Institute graduates who is now an administrator of a high school in Erie, Pennsylvania, did an ARRL exercise with his students, but he's built a thriving amateur radio presence in the high school. They used ARDC money to build out a beautiful station. They've worked with Steve Goodgame in our education and learning area, and their ARRL exercise was on the national news. It was on the NBC morning show, the Today Show. After that ARRL exercise, the students got together with Steve Goodgame and started to collaborate with him on what their next exercise was going to be, which is to try to use their station to do EME contacts. So we see that directionally, this is sort of the right way to go. It's why we have baked it into ARRL's strategy. And it's why it's essentially becoming the third advocacy for the organization. We've always promoted amateur radio. We work very diligently. Art pointed out that our guy in Washington was in Dubai for more than 60 days at the WRC 23, working to protect amateur radio's interests. So we're always on the job in terms of protecting amateur radio, but now we've added this third advocacy, which is to inspire and educate young people. And so in any event, so those are sort of my opening comments, Art, and then as the evening goes on, I'm happy to address any questions.
Thank you very much, David. Let me give Rick Roderick, K5UR, our president of our board, a chance to make a few remarks. Actually, as many as you want, Rick.
All right, Art. Well, good to see everyone. I sure recognize a lot of faces and calls from over the years on here, so it's good to be back and see everyone again. And doggone, Art, I guess you and I should have coordinated a little bit better, although I think I've been gone 10 of the last 14 days. So, but you stole all my presentation. I had about the same kind of PowerPoints about, about what the board has done. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, what can I talk about? But I never have a problem talking about amateur radio. So, but I do want to expand on a couple of things that Art brought up on some motions at the July board meeting, and y'all can read about that in the minutes. They were published, and there was a short article, about the board meeting and in the October QST. But we had a good board meeting, and when it was over and I was looking back over the notes and everything, it dawned on me that of all the motions that we had, and there was 11 motions, 10 of the 11 motions passed unanimously, which I couldn't remember the last time the board passed that many motions unanimously of that percentage, 10 of the 11. And the one that didn't pass unanimously, it still passed by a margin of 11-4. So that I thought that was noteworthy, and that it shows that the board overall seems to be working better together on items, and as indicated by those kinds of votes. A couple of other points on a couple of motions, not to try to be too redundant with what Art had mentioned. I want to talk a little about this motion on what's called I guess you'd say we call it the board governance motion, I guess, for a better reason, where we're talking about looking at things and that we might want to change. And I've often mentioned to my colleagues, I said, we, as old as we are, and I don't really remember how long ago the field organization has been in place with its current divisions and sections. Part of me thinks that something keeps coming to mind. It's back in the early 50s, but it may predate that. But I know I started in the field organization. I'm often proud to say this, although it sure tells my age. But I started in the field organization and worked my way up through the field management 57 years ago. Wow. And that same field organization today is in place exactly like the one I started with 57 years ago. And so I thought, well, if we were really wanting to look at the organization and really try to look to the future, and we're really thinking a lot about the future, and just like Mr. Minster indicated, and we all of us on this call, we're saying we're going to form the American Radio Relay League, all of us, then what would it look like? If we had a fresh look at the organization, forgetting about the 71 sections and the 15 divisions, forget all that. You know, what would we want it to look like? Well, we might want to do W1AW or something like W5AW or something. I'm just kidding, but you know, get it out of that New England cold weather, you know, or get it in W0 land more to the center. But again, I'm being a little joking there. But it makes my point that, I mean, really, what would it look like? And I said, well, if we were really big enough to take a look at the organization and try to make it better in today's world, with the changing environment that we've had, that we continually see, you know, and again, I use this example, over 50% of the hams out there are technicians. They're not like me, and they're not like a lot of you people. They don't have the same interest that got me into ham radio, which was being able to talk around the world and run traffic and things. You know, that landscape is different, much different. And so what would it look like? And so that's the challenge I gave the directors, was when they passed that motion, I said, well, take a look at everything, from headquarters down. And so I expect y'all to hear more about that in the future. It's not something we're going to accomplish overnight. We're going to take a hard look at this and involve the field organization, involve a lot of different people, a lot of member input, probably some people with business backgrounds input. I mean, what would the board look like? Would we have 30-something people on the board if we created the ARRL today? I don't know, you know. So it's I'm trying to hope that we will have an open mind in trying to figure out what we want the organization to look like if we do think it needs to have some adjustments. Now, the challenge we have is probably everybody on this phone is probably, or on this Zoom call, is very similar to me, and that is we're traditionalists. Hams don't like change at all. They just don't. They're not nearly susceptible to change. You know, I mean, I'm looking at the age on this phone on this Zoom call, and I bet some of you all have seen 866's Glow Blue and a Viking Valiant. You know, now the 22-year-old ham has. You know, I know the ones I know in some of my clubs haven't. So you get what I'm saying. But you know, we don't like a lot of change, and so when we're talking about maybe some changes in the organization from the top down, and we may be met with a lot of resistance if we decide that things could be better a different way. Or it may be that when we look at things and that committee really gets to doing more work and analysis and feedback from everyone, that everything's just fine. You know, just leave it just like it is. But I was given a presentation sometime back at some big group and said just about the very same thing as I just did. And by the end of the day, it was already out on social media that I'm wanting to get rid of the section managers, get rid of the field organization, change the board of directors. And I didn't say any of that. I did not say any of that. In fact, I emphasize strongly how we're going to solicit input and get feedback from people and suggestions, and try to have an open mind about what we want the organization to look for, if there's any changes that need to be done going forward into this next generation. So I personally believe the board governance, that motion with a study group to review the structure is really important. And I'm sure that it's going to take some time to do, but again, it's not something we'll be working in a vacuum with at all. It'll be a real open process. The other thing that I wanted to emphasize a little bit on was what David said about the strategy, and that the board had adopted unanimously that we wanted to really emphasize a new strategic element on committing resources to that, what I call the next generation. Many of you have heard me say, and I've been up in the Midwest Division for years, and I bet I sound like a broken record for those of you who have heard me, that I worry every day about our next generation. You know, where's it going to mean? Every week, I know somebody dying that I grew up with in ham radio. I bet you do too. Look at the faces on this call. Do you see any teenagers on this call? Nope. I see a bunch of people that look like me. So I worry about that. And the league is in probably the best position to do something for the future and working together collectively with other organizations and the field organization and you people on this Zoom call to really emphasize that we've got to look at initiatives targeting and inspiring that next generation. And that's not just for I think it's like David said, our Teachers Institute is a real good program in that regard. But I also get a lot of feedback from people saying, Rick, the league needs to focus on people who are like 30 and 40 years old, after they've gotten a job, got a family going, and then they're coming back into the wonderful hobby, of amateur radio. So there's just a lot of things we need to be looking at and doing and for us to think about. And of course, expanding the resources in this digital transformation. That's still a challenge. I still get occasional emails and phone calls. And again, you're looking at a traditionalist. I'm sitting here supposed to be with an open mind, helping the organization and the board. And yet I'm one of those that I want my QST. I've got 57 years of QST out in the shop out there, and I bet I hadn't looked at them in years. I mean, I can't even, somebody says, well, take them to the burn pile and burn them. I can't even throw them away, they go into a box and I put them out there in the shop. But I have worked real hard at getting away from print QST, and I started a year or two ago by, getting on and looking at it electronically. And frankly, I kind of like it looking at it electronically better than I do getting out the magazine. But I still want my magazine, So that's been a tough issue. But in today's world, that generation, my boys are. I hope my family's all younger, like 30s now, the mid to late 30s. They don't get any hard print anything. In fact, they don't want to look at a magazine. They don't want to grab a magazine. They're saying, what are you spending money on a magazine for? I got it on I got it on this thing right here. They're looking at this thing 24 hours a day, almost in their sleep. So it's a new world out there. And then, of course, we're expanding the financial resources of the organization. That's a real challenge. It's just a real challenge, and we don't like raising dues. And I think this dues increase we came through the other day, last year was the second one in 22 years or something like that. It's something we don't want to do, but I'm telling you, every organization I've known seems like that I can think of right off the top of my hat that I've been involved with has been raising their dues off and on for a long time, and it's just unfortunate. We hams don't like to pay anything more than what we really need to, but it's something we had to do. And we were, even though we've got a lot of donors that help us out and things like that, a lot of that money is restricted, and we can't use it for general operations. So we were burning through a scenario with our revenue enhancement committee that studied things that said, if we don't do something in 3 or 4 years, we've used up all our operational money. So how unfortunate it was, but we had to do that as good stewards of the organization. I guess the last thing I would like to say would simply be, I always like to challenge a group when I talk to people. And many of you have heard me talk over the years, and I always end up with 3 or 4 things that I firmly believe in that everyone on this Zoom call needs to work on, and that is over the next year. And that is everybody on here needs to try to get a new ham into this hobby. This is the greatest hobby, the greatest avocation on the face of the earth. I firmly believe that in my heart. I don't know what I'd do without it. And I figure y'all love this hobby as much as I do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be spending time on this call tonight. But I want to challenge you to really work hard. Every one of us getting a new ham between now and next year. The second thing is I want you to get back in a club. I want you to go back to your clubs. A lot of people left their clubs with COVID, or in particular that younger generation, they're not joiners. And some of you have heard me tell this story, and if you've heard it, I want to tell it again, and it's worth hearing. When I was a kid and I rode my bicycle down to the county courthouse to my little club, there's a small little town at the foot of the Ozark Mountains. Didn't have a lot of people. If anything, we may have had 6 or 7 adults at the most every month. And I'd walk in there as a snot-nosed kid, and if I missed a club meeting, If I missed a club meeting, my dad would be getting a call from one of those Elmers. We called them Elmers back then, mentors now. My dad would be getting a call the next day and said, Bobby Joe, Ricky did not make it to the club meeting last night. We need him to come to the club meeting. We will come by and pick him up for the next one next month. Now, in today's world, I doubt that people would let people go pick a kid up, but back then you didn't have to worry about anything. Now, do y'all do that? You know, if a snot-nosed kid walks in, or a 19-year-old or somebody walks into your local club, how do you treat them? So we still hear stories that people go to these clubs and say, I ain't going back. That's on you. That's on you. And so you need to get back in your clubs. You need to work on the culture in your clubs, and you get your club rejuvenated, because clubs mean everything. And I really believe the league can't do that out in the field, you know, street to street. That's on you. That's on us locally to get that done. The third thing I want y'all to work on is helping a ham. And this comes home to me here recently, but as David knows, I mean, I've had a problem. One of my antennas up pretty high. I got my tallest tower is 200 feet. And I got several of them up. And I'm sitting there, and for 2 months, I looked at the top of this one tower, and I said, I don't want to climb that tower. I used to climb a tower and not even worry about things. I was so worried about getting on there. My knees were giving out on me. My shoulders were giving out on me. My kids were over here begging me, Dad, go pay somebody to climb that tower. I said, no, I always do it myself. I've just got to do it myself. Okay. And then I started realizing, you know, I've had a bunch of buddies that quit climbing towers 5 years ago. I mean, if one of their antennas goes down, or even a dipole, they're not going to do anything with it until somebody goes and helps them. Now, you may be one of those. I don't know. But my point is that we're an aged group, and we've got to rely on each other, and we need to help each other out. And some of the happiest moments I've seen with older hams that have been at this a long time, is that have gotten off the air, is when they told me a story about a group of people from the local club driving up and helping them put back an antenna. And I want y'all to think about that. And the last thing I want you to do, if you're not a member of the ARRL, you need to join the league. Okay? You know, the league hadn't done everything I've liked over the years, but I've never quit them. I've always been a member on all those 57 years. I mean, that was a culture in my club that you needed to join the league. Nobody ever told me to join the league. I just felt it, you know. But it's important that we all be members. I know if you're not a member, you need to be. And if you are a member, I want you to work hard in finding somebody who's not a member and convincing them to be a member of the league. We're all in this together, and it's your league. And the last thing I'd have to say is this. It's easy to be negative. It's so easy to be negative. But you got to pull yourselves up and be positive and not put up with this negative stuff, okay? So when you go to bed tonight, and when you wake up tomorrow morning, I want you to see my face looking at you. And I want you to remember this question. What have I done positively for amateur radio lately? What positive thing have I done for amateur radio lately? Now, when you go to bed tonight, and again, when you wake up tomorrow morning, I want you to see my face looking at you, asking yourself that question. I dare you. You think real hard about that. Again, I suspect everybody on here loves amateur radio as much as I do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on here tonight. So if we all work together collectively, we can make it better and make a difference. Thank you, Art.
Thank you very much, Rick. I appreciate your comments. I'll say two things. One is that Jim Pace, whose call I forgot, he was the division director for the Northwestern Division. And he used to say the only people who like change were babies and bus drivers. I believe that. The other comment I wanted to make as you talked is one of the best parts of being on the ARRL Foundation board is I get to interview applicants for scholarships. And we got to interview many young applicants, new hams, young people in high school or college. And they are enthusiastic, they're interested, they're interesting, they're interested in robotics and satellites and the things and the digital side that we didn't know about when we started out. But it gives me hope that there's a lot of interest in ham radio. So with that, I have one more. I'm going to ask one more person to speak, and then we're going to open it up to lots of topics. So, Brett, W0VK, are you here?
Yes, sir, I am.
Brett, would you like to talk about what we're planning for the 2025 division convention?
Yes, sir, I would. First off, you can hear me all right, right?
Yes.
All right. First off, I would like to say I'm Brett Coons from Sedalia, Missouri. Call signs W0VK. Rick, I really feel like you were kind of speaking to me and my community here with some of the things that you were just saying. I took over the club back in 2000. We had 15 members. Now we're at 100 members. We do the things that you talk about. We have a committee that's a wrecking crew. We do a lot of those things. We have constant outreach. We do the ARRL testing. If you ever want to have a conversation, I'd love to. I've got a recipe that's working here in Sedalia, and I feel like that's probably what's brought me to the table today. So moving on to the Midwest Division Convention. I have been very overwhelmingly pleased with the opportunity to do this. We've got a facility here in Sedalia, Missouri. It's at the Missouri State Fairgrounds. The date's going to be October 10th and 11th, 2025. It's going to be a 2-day event. We'll have a load in the day before and load out the day after if needed. It's going to be a great time. So we've got Art. How deep you want me to go on this thing? You know, I've got a lot of details. You want me to do a little more of a summary?
Once you do a summary, we want to make sure we have time for people to ask questions and talk about that.
Yep. Okay. Well, bottom line is we have plenty of hotel spacing and agreements with that. I've been working with the chamber. I've been also working with the director of tourism to even get some help with financials on that. We've got 2 facilities out there rented that we're going to have a big hamfest at. We're going to have a educational room with comm vehicles and robotics and youth education in that room. And then we've got classrooms that will run simultaneously for the 2 full days. We'll have testing both days, and we'll have, I'm in the process of scheduling, the seminars that we will have in the 2 classrooms running both days. As far as the, let's see what we got here. We'll have a banquet Friday night. We'll have dinner. We can have some awards. I would love to have some of you all speaking. I think it's important to have the ARRL figureheads there amongst the group. We'll have that. We'll have, like I said, the flea market, the forums. We'll have maybe a contest there. We're going to have a live, an operating station there, so we can bring folks in and we can show them the operations of that, securing an antenna to go outside tower and things like that, so we can get that up. We want to get that live. We're going to have STEM there. We're going to have some balloon launches from the local Civil Air Patrol. He's wanting to launch some stuff there. We're going to have a good day. We're going to have a good weekend. I mean, I can continue to go on, but in a nutshell, we're going to have the Midwest Division Convention here in Sedalia next year in October. Looking forward to it. I'm really going to be very proactive to make it something very memorable and exciting. And so, Art, that's what I've got.
Well, thank you very much, Brett. And I want to thank you for being so enthusiastic. I want to thank the section managers for supporting us in doing this. We had meetings of the potential locations and the section managers helping us figure out what we want to do. And I really appreciate that. So this is something to look forward to more. I'm going to we'll make more information available as soon as we know and get things get nailed down and programs get set up and that sort of thing. But thank you very much, Brett. Well, I'd
Okay,
like to
thank you.
move on. And if you want to mute your mic now, that'd be great. He did. Good man, Brett. Thank you. I want to get onto the open mic section of this. I've seen a few comments on the chat. One of the things that I see Eric has his hand up. Hang on, Eric. One of the things that I want to talk about is the fact that for some reason we've gotten some strange issues with transparency, and we've gotten some strange issues with people who want to create and pass bad information, whether to feed their ego, feed their span of control. I don't know what it is. It bothers me a lot. And one thing I will say to all of you, and many of you have taken advantage of this, call me, email me, let's talk. I'll tell you the honest truth as far as I know it, as far as I can. Most of this this conspiracy stuff is just a bunch of bullpucky. And I'm sorry we have to go through it. It wastes much too much of the time of people who are trying to do something right. So let's see. David, would you like to comment on anything you've seen, or before I pick up the hands?
Well, there's a couple subjects that that came up there that I happened to have addressed yesterday that I'd like to hit upon just quickly. The first one, which has to do with this transparency issue, and I'm very much like Art. Anybody that wants to challenge ARRL to transparency can reach out to me, and I will be very direct in my response. If somebody wants to ask a question, you're going to get an answer. You may not like the answer, you may not agree with the answer, but you're going to get the answer that you're looking for. One of the things that was said over the weekend, and a member actually put it this way, and I wrote it down, is that ARRL seems to be aggressively disqualifying candidates this year. And I want to talk to that for a minute, because it's important that you can discern what's going on, because I'm hopeful that it does not become a trend. You know, I've been the CEO now for just over 4 years, so I've had the opportunity to see 4 election cycles. I've never seen one like this before. I mean, frankly, and I can speak more frankly about it once the election is over, but what I have seen is absolutely abhorrent. All right, so let's start with this. You probably know ARRL has articles and bylaws. The board has the ability to change articles and bylaws through specific mechanisms, specifically around motions and votes to change them. The board cannot vote to ignore an article or bylaw. It cannot say that an article or a bylaw is de minimis and that, well, come on, you know, we're all friends here, let's just push that aside. Because you as a member expect us to run this organization as fiduciaries, as people that are looking. You know, we have a lot of people who have given to Diamond Club. We have people who are Maxim Society members who have given $10,000 or more. These people expect the organization to be run according to the rules and regulations of the organization. They don't want this to be the wild, wild west. So we had a candidate that submitted their application 30 minutes past the deadline. The bylaw is really clear. It says I think it's the third Friday in August at noon. So that's pretty clear to me. And so at noon on that Friday, we let the Ethics and Elections Committee know that they have received all of the applications, and we move forward. Well, this application came in 30 minutes late. Frankly, it came in from someone who is an attorney, who was educated at a school in Boston that many of you have heard of, an Ivy League school. I would expect someone of that educational background to know that rules are rules. But in any event, he wanted to challenge the bylaw, and of course the bylaw, you can't challenge it. You can change it. But in any event, so the important thing to note there is that this was not a candidate that was disqualified by anyone, that their package was never eligible for election in the first place because it didn't meet the bylaws. We had a second individual who wanted to word play with our articles to basically see if he owned land in one state and in a division and owned land in another division. Could he run as a director in either one of those divisions? And the long story short is that there was a complaint filed, and it was determined that this individual had certified to the state of Florida that they were eligible for a homestead tax rebate, which the state gives, Florida gives to people that live in the state rather than act as snowbirds in the state. So if you live there, you get a discount on your taxes. And this was an individual that was representing that he lived in Virginia. Unfortunately, there was that issue, and our ARRL membership system showed that he had listed his home address as being in Florida. Because he is not of the division with which he was trying to run, he is not eligible to run in that division. He was not disqualified. This was someone who was not eligible to run. But what that's going to force us to do now, and he also, by the way, is an attorney, a career attorney. He is going to force the board to have to go to these election rules and regulations. And now we're going to have to take a look at every word and wordsmith it so that we don't get into this situation in the future. There's a third thing that happened recently that was a disqualification, and it's really this simple. You had a candidate who the election process starts on July 1st. He came out of the gate right after July 1st, was using his own resources, a website, and some other things to create statements about ARRL that were not correct. And once he became a candidate, the ethics committee received many complaints. He has suggested that those complaints came from one person or from a couple of people. They received many complaints about the things that were being said. He cooperated with them for many weeks. And then he finally got to a point where he didn't want to be told that he was wrong anymore. And rather than making corrections to what he had stated, he restated the things that he had been told were wrong and essentially challenged the ethics committee with regards to what power they had over him. And when I don't know if you know this or not, but you know, there was a great song that said, "I fought authority and authority always wins." Well, you can't go up against an elections committee and basically tell them they don't have the authority to manage that election. And so they disqualified him. They did not disqualify him because of what he said. They disqualified him because of what he did. And what he did as a candidate was to stop cooperating with regards to the elections process at ARRL. So that's total transparency. There was nothing nefarious here. This is not some movement by ARRL to circle the wagons and keep out certain candidates. That we have rules and regulations, and it just so happens that in this particular year, you had two people that caused by their own hands to be not eligible to run, and you had one person who decided that he was going to go up against the elections committee, and they were not having it. So that's the one thing. The second thing I want to talk about just very briefly is QST magazine, and we've communicated this thing half to death, but I just want to hit on a few points. First of all, everyone who joins ARRL and pays for a membership. And that membership, we put in QST every single month, the benefits associated with being a part of a member of ARRL. They're not all the benefits. They're the major benefits, the headlines, and so forth. But over the years, ARRL provided QST magazine as a free member benefit. And some years ago, and maybe somewhere around, I don't know, 2012 or something like that, if I recall, QST started showing up in things like DVD format, and then there was the digital version that was online, and the rules were basically changed. The definition of the benefits was changed to say that ARRL was responsible for delivering to a member QST in digital or print format. There was no wordsmithing. We didn't do it to coincide with the dues increase. This was something that was already there. And a very, very hard decision was made about what we needed to do with regards to taking that free benefit of a print magazine and requiring members, just as they already did with QEX and NCJ, that they would have to pay for the print version. And of course, it also affected on the air. And I just want to contrast, because Rick touched on this, but you know, you hear a lot of nonsense about ARRL being, and I quote, flush with cash, and that there's all this money that we can, you know, put in our hands and just flip off into space. ARRL, when we looked at a projection based on the losses that ARRL has been operating under for a few years, a number of years now, we were going to run out of money. And there's this theory that has been brought up in the boardroom that when, not if, when ARRL runs out of money, a bunch of really rich hams are going to show up with checkbooks, and they're going to write checks so that every year ARRL will continue to operate. Basically, nobody believes that theory. So when it came down to separating off QST, the decision was that having the print version of the magazine be a supplemental expense, there was pretty broad understanding of that. And I don't want to go into I mean, I can go into more detail, but the bottom line is this: the print industry has changed dramatically, and probably everybody on this call is to blame. And that is, you know, when I got home this morning from my red eye from California, I had 2 packages on my front porch from Amazon. They come in corrugated cardboard. And the people that are running the pulp mills have consolidated. The people that are creating paper products in various forms have determined that their greatest opportunity for margin, meaning for the amount of work they do, how much money are they keeping in their pocket, the margin that they're making is higher on these cardboard products than it is on paper. You wouldn't know this because this is sort of behind the scenes, but we have really struggled to keep the quality of QST paper where it is. And we've even been challenged on the size of the paper rolls, so that the way that we produce QST is different today than it was just a couple years ago. So there's going to come a time, and this is not me being being a negative guy or being anti-paper or anything else. There's going to come a time where organizations like ours are not reasonably going to be able to sustain printing magazines anymore. Because it's not just printing the magazines, you actually have to do something else, and that's called mail them. Anybody mail anything lately? I will tell you that those costs are not fixed. They are not stable. They are constantly going up. We've used mail pools with other magazines to try to save money. And I'm just telling you that it is something that we are actively challenging. But the hardest decision that we made by far was whether or not we were going to continue to provide people that were already in membership terms with ongoing print QST, or were we going to draw a line in the sand and say, as of this date, we have to stop providing a free member benefit, and if you want to continue with it, you will have to pay for it. And that decision came down to one number, which again, there are those that don't believe and want to challenge, but I will tell you that our CFO and our treasurer were involved in taking a look at this. So I have every confidence that the number is correct. It would have cost us $1.7 million to continue printing those magazines. And the decision was made that there was such a concern about whether the organization was going to run out of capital in 4 or 5 years that it did not want to take on the risk of pulling $1.7 million out of the investments that we had at that time. So in any event, that's sort of the background and the financial side of print QST. But it's it's a tough thing for organizations and even look at CQ magazine. I mean, I don't know if you knew Dick Ross or not, but that man worked every day up until the day he died trying to find a loan to put CQ magazine back up on the rails, because he had exhausted every other source of revenue, every other source of financial support that he had for that magazine. And if you'll recall, when we were at $49 for both digital and print QST and all of the other membership benefits, if you had digital and print CQ magazine, you were paying $63. And if you, like me, you were receiving CQ magazine, you weren't getting the print copies. They became unreliable because they were having money problems. Their business model as a small magazine was unsustainable. So that's sort of the big picture on QST. And Art, if there's any other questions around that, I'm happy to address them.
Well, let me just raise one that came up, and that was, have we lost a significant membership since we made that decision?
Have we lost? They said, well, so, those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it, right? So we took a look at the dues increases in the past. And even though this is a restructuring of dues, we expected that it was going to behave very much like a regular dues increase. I will tell you that I was at Pacificon this past weekend, and we took a tremendous number of 3-year memberships with printed QST. And people understand, for example, if you went to this event, 2 days of parking at the hotel was $28. So if you just parked for this Hamfest for 2 days, you paid more than a full year of printed QST delivered to your house. These people were very, very pragmatic about what they're paying for. So in any event, when we looked back at prior dues increases, what we saw was that there are people that get really teed off about the fact that the dues went up, even in the past where they only went up $5. And what they do is they vote with their feet. It's an act of rebellion to show us that we're bad guys because prices in the world go up, and so we had to raise dues. But what that also shows is that over a period of about 3 years, those members, for the most part, come back. And so have the number of members in ARRL dropped? The answer is yes. Now, it's not exclusive to the dues increase, because we've got 2 other factors that we're dealing with. The first one, which Rick sort of alluded to, and you'll see in my December column, this was a very tough year for amateur radio. we lost a lot of good people. The number of silent keys that we're experiencing are absolutely real. The second problem we've had, and again, it was something that was mentioned earlier, you know, as we've recovered from this ransomware attack, it's taken us time to get certain aspects of our business back up online. Now, we've been very happy that our website, the association management system, our magazines in print and digital form, you know, all of the major benefits, Logbook of the World, although it took us time to make the network secure so that we could bring LOTW back up and available to the you know, the big wide world. But you know, we've been able to continue to provide the big things to members. But one of the things that took a hit was our ability to do the direct marketing that we did to new hams and to people whose memberships had lapsed and so forth. So there's a bit of an impact there as well. But what I will tell you is that the drop in membership is not at all surprising based on what we've seen from other dues increases. And we have every confidence that if we continue to work hard and do things well, that those people at some point will recognize that, you know, maybe it would be better for them to be back supporting the organization and going back to getting access to their magazines.
I got a note that I'm supposed to push you to give us an exact number, but I don't want to do that. And for two reasons. One is we don't know the real cause. And the other is we've seen similar things in the past, and I expect that we'll recover. And in any case, it's not a huge percentage.
And number three is I don't have the number in the top of my head, so I couldn't tell you anyway, but.
All right, let me see, we've had some people with their hands raised patiently. Let me go ahead and in the order they raised their hands, and thank you for being patient, everybody. Let me start with Eric, K0LGE. You have a question, Eric, or comment?
Well, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Art. Real quickly, by way of introduction, I am a ham that is new to the Midwest Division. Moved down into Wichita. That's a long story in and of itself. At the beginning of the year, formerly of the Northern Illinois area, specifically the Chicago suburb of Aurora, home of the Fox River Radio League, who just celebrated its 100th anniversary here in October. And we had a great celebration with 130 people present. So acclimating myself here to Wichita, getting involved in the Wichita Amateur Radio Club, or trying to sort my schedule out here. I'm a self-employed IT engineer, so that brings a little bit of challenge into life, getting situated here. I just wanted to add a comment to what Rick said. No, I don't look just like you, Rick, but you know, that's another story. Anyway, you know, we say that, and I'm starting to see this. I'm 58 years old, and you know, I'm starting to see that generational change. And if we say that we are ready for, at some point, for the next generation to take over, we had better be ready to hang on and accept what they might want to do differently, because I've already seen it in a lot of different areas of my life, even with my own kids. And it's going to be a lot different than the way that we do things. And we had better be ready for that and be willing to accept it and to embrace it, work with them to work out things that might not be such a good idea that they don't see. I mean, you know, we talk about the magazine and all that stuff. I mean, you know, my daughter, you know, I've got bookshelves and bookshelves full of picture albums. My daughter, all the photos of her life live on her phone. And, you know, that's, you know, we talk about, oh, I want to, honey, send you an enlargement of this. So why not do that? Just send it to me via text. That's their world. And and it's the here and now. There are some who are better about this, but for a lot of the current generation, history does not mean so much to them. And not that they totally disregard it, but again, it's the here and now. And so I'm just saying we had better be ready to work with the next generation to work through those issues as we hand this organization and the state of ham radio in general to them, because it's going to be different.
I think you're making a very good point, Eric. We've got to learn to be flexible with these younger people and not expect them to follow the path that we followed. And I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
I thank you for those comments. Let me continue to pick up hands unless somebody wants to respond to what was just said. We'll move on. Let's see, Dudley, KD0NMD.
Good afternoon, good evening, Art, and everybody else that's in here. I just want to do a quick shout out for the operators that may be in this Zoom that reached out to the youth, took their shack out to where those kids are at. For this past weekend was the 67th Jamboree on the Air, and there was probably about 1 million scouts around the world that were in that. I listened to both D-Star 33 Alpha as well as Echo Link at the same time from my shack, reaching back to either side if somebody didn't have an immediate callback. So it was a lot of fun. But in the chat, I listed out 10 operators from the Mid-America Radio Scouting Group that over 2 large events have put well over 85, more than likely 100 scouts on the air. The first large event was the Jubilee from the Mid-America Radio, or from the Mid-America Scouting Council. And then, of course, this past weekend was the Jamboree. So those 10 operators are listed. Big thanks to them. And then here's well, if this thing will zoom in, it's not going to come out very, but that's what the patch looks like this year. I mailed out a patch to each one of those 10 that were in the event this past weekend. So thanks for letting me do a shout out. Youth outreach is most important, and we got to get out of the shack, go take the shack with us, go to where they are. They're not coming to you. You got to go to them. So let's get out of the shack and go make it happen.
Thank you, Dudley, and I appreciate an article for the newsletter when you get a chance with those names and pictures if you got them. All right, thank you so much for your comment. Let's see, Lloyd, we're getting a little bit late, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Lloyd, KC5 FM.
And thank you for hosting this call, directed to David and A2AA. Has the league developed a business continuity plan with input from Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, Infraguard.us, and Oxcom? Thank you.
And Lloyd, let me ask you, answer that question for me.
My assessment.
You would what?
I got a meeting.
You always are in a meeting.
Wait a minute, somebody mute their mics, please. They're all
Yeah, Tom Woodard, please mute your mic. Well, anyway, the answer to that question is no, because the scope of what you just suggested is huge, especially given the fact that we just went through a cyber attack. The priorities right now is that we're in the process of going through the entire enterprise, standardizing and simplifying what amounts to over 70 servers. Many of them have code that is many years old. And so we're going through and basically resurrecting the infrastructure on those standards. We have a third party who has worked with us through the cyber attack, who is going to continue working with us from a for lack of a better term, a cybersecurity perspective. And then once that is all done, there are 2 aspects that we will need to work on, and it's why And it was at my request that it was at my request that the ITAC be formulated, and that is that we can bring in, as we need them, third-party experts to work with us first on our disaster recovery plan, which frankly a lot of it is going to continue the move that we've been making to moving our applications into the cloud. And then from a business continuity perspective, which essentially will take a look at how we would continue the operation of ARRL and its benefits if there was some kind of a major interruption. So sort of that's where we're at.
Thank you, David. Let's see, Lee Garner, WA0UIG. Lee, you want to ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, from the beginning, as section manager, the quality of membership is always an issue. We here in Iowa had 13 Hamfests, which, as David pointed out earlier, is a place to meet and talk to the average amateur, especially members at the ARRL table. One of the constant things that I'm hearing is about the QST, and it's not what you would think. What we need to do is take a hard right here and understand that it's not necessarily the QST magazine that's the issue. It's the perception that membership is important, or in this case, not important or valued by ARRL. And one of the things that we are doing well at ARRL is honoring membership, including membership, especially through the field services. This is where section managers, section traffic managers, affiliated club coordinators, youth coordinators, government liaisons in the field services all come in. We are elected, section managers are elected in our sections, and we represent the members. What we hear is what then we represent to the ARRL. If we're hearing still about QST, we do pay attention to that. Again, this is not about the magazine itself. In fact, I heard from somebody this weekend at our last Hamfest of the year last weekend that they didn't care if QST was slick or shiny. They would take it on newsprint. And I started to argue with them, and then I realized that the topic really was about, are they having something removed from membership? Is there a barrier between ARRL and membership? This is where the field services comes in. We talk to them. We honor their comments, and we take those comments to the board, to the corporation, and we plug away as far as member services. This is where field services comes in with ARRL. If we understand that field services is member services, it's all in the same basket. We have direct contact, direct access with our members. As ARRL supports the field services, which they are, those membership support will help mitigate the idea that something has been taken away when we removed the QST from a member benefit, because there are a lot of member benefits. We can't go back and fix that now, but what we can do is talk about and support field services to help members understand that ARRL has not denigrated their membership, has not brought that, you know, has not devalued their membership, that this is a financial issue, which all hams understand. They truly do understand the issue behind the expense of QST. There are a lot of people who do go online. And so that is not really the issue. The issue truly is ARRL honoring membership, and are they valuing membership? Are they a membership organization? That's where the conversation is out there in the field. So what we need to do is work together to provide those member benefits through the field services in terms of membership, and we will build that community. And in fact, my last forum was called Amateur Radio, the Next Generation. And if you'd like me to present on Generation Alpha, it's absolutely fascinating. So anyway, getting back to what this topic is about is tonight in terms of the town hall is, where does ARRL stand with its members? And it is fully committed to membership. We just have to make sure that we support that in all aspects. So that wasn't how I was going to present that, but I want to get back to listening to the members now. And thanks for listening.
Thanks, Lee. David, do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, there's a couple comments. One is I'm a little bit distracted because Lloyd's firing off text messages faster than my tired brain can keep up with them. But there was something in there about ordering books for libraries. There's a page in the ARRL store that lets you buy the full assortment for $250. It was completely unaffected by the cyber attack. If you want to buy an assortment of books for a library, it's there, and just follow the instructions and you can do that. Lee makes, as she always does, makes very good points. The one thing that I do want to say that came up this weekend that I think is very important is, you know, I'm a big believer in surveys. Somebody earlier in this call made a comment that, you know, young people are not, you know, they're not so into history. It turns out we sell a satellite book that I am not crazy about at all, because it basically starts with, you know, Adam and Eve, whatever. You know, it's the history of satellites all the way back to, you know, throwing rocks into the air. And so we sell book covers. We don't sell books. When you go on our website, you look at a description and a book cover, and that's what people buy. So we surveyed the people that bought that satellite book to see whether or not they had made their first contact. Over 80% of the people that bought that book never made their first satellite contact. So what does that tell you about the book? Well, it tells me that the book is not very good. And so we are redoing that satellite book. It took some time to find an appropriate set of authors to work on it. And I'm going to be involved looking at it from a satellite operator's perspective, because I spend a lot of time on satellite, or used to anyway. The other thing I would say, just as a comparison, is we did the NFED half-wave kit, which we have sold over 7,000 of. And the reason why that kit is important to me is because ARRL members distinguish themselves from licensed hams because in one way or another, they are active in amateur radio. So if there's someone who doesn't have an antenna or wants a basic antenna for POTA or for their home or whatever else, we wanted to offer a kit so that, you know, you would actually wind up having to build it. If you've never wound a toroid before, guess what? This kit makes you wind a toroid. If you've never drilled holes in a box and come out with a finished product that looks nice, you know, if you're careful building this antenna, it's a really nice finished product. So we surveyed 1,500 people and said, how many of you have built this antenna and gotten on the air? And of those 1,500 people, over 85% built the antenna and made a contact or more with it. So that tells me that we were successful there. When we went to do the dues increase, I was talking about a dues increase and the potential of having QST, printed QST, be an add-on product. I was talking about that for more than a year before we even stood up a committee to investigate it, because you don't have to be a rocket scientist to look at an organization that's losing more than $1 million or $2 million every single year to know it can't go on forever. And 2 years ago at Pacificon, 2 years almost to the day, when I brought it up, there was a woman sitting in the front row and she yelled out, "Please don't take away my print magazine." And I said to her, "If you had to pay for the printed magazine, would you be willing to do that?" And she said, "Yes." And I looked out across the audience and there were a whole lot of people nodding their head, right? So that was a good data point. But what I did was I went back to headquarters and said, we need to survey the members. We need to put together a survey. Now, you can't just make it fill in the blank, because frankly, who's going to go through thousands of fill in the blanks and try to draw any kind of direction from it? So we built we had a committee build a survey. Now, I was told that not to get too not to get my hopes up, because members tend not to be too participatory in surveys, and that I should only expect about 2,000 to 3,000 people to respond. So we sent this survey. We broadcasted it to the members through the member bulletin. We put it on the news crawl. We did everything we could to draw attention to this thing. And I'm happy to tell you that more than 20,000 members filled out that survey. Well, in watching the surveys get filled in, once sort of the statistical balance of answers emerged after about the first 800 or 1,000, that balance never changed. So we knew that as the thousands of more surveys that came in, the assortment of the numbers, the results of the survey were frankly not changing. They were being reinforced by the membership. That survey is still on our website, and you can go and take a look at that. When you take a look at the price of an ARRL membership, you will see that it is directly supported by the survey in asking members what they thought ARRL should be charging for a membership. So we are very receptive, open-minded to hearing from members. We're a membership organization. Within our values, we talk about the fact that we are member-centric. But the one thing that I will tell you about managing ARRL, and this will not come as a surprise to you, is it is not vastly different from talking to people in this country about politics. When you want to talk about politics, you are going to find people split about 50-50. So when I talk to certain people about QST, they say it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I've got a whole nother group that say it's too thin, it's too thick, there's too many ads, there's not enough ads. I hate the historical part. The first section of the magazine I read is the historical part. When in the May, I may get this wrong, I think it's the May 2023 magazine. We were told by our printer that they could not get the paper that we print QST on, and that we were going to have to miss a month. And there was no possible way that we were going to miss the printing of QST. So we went to brokers, we found paper. It cost us $45,000 additional to print that month's magazine. It was on paper that was a lesser quality, but it was the best kind of that we could do. And we received comments back from members. Not surprisingly, they were about 50-50. There were people that said they loved the new paper, and there were other people that said that we were incompetent because we picked the wrong paper and that we should have known better. So in any event, The field organization, the section managers, the relationship with clubs, having a strong affiliated club coordinator is important. The relationship of our section managers back to the head of field services, this gentleman Mike Walters, is important. The beyond the affiliated club coordinator, the cabinet that section managers staff with volunteers is critically important. That entire ecosystem of support for ARRL members is important, and we work hard every day at ARRL, not just to support the members directly, but also trying to provide our field organization with what they need to do a great job. Back to you, Art.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the comment. And let's see, we're running really late here. I appreciate everybody who's sticking with us, and I appreciate the patience of the people with their hands up. Chuck, K0XM.
Hi, Art. I got a question here. It's for Dave or maybe Glenn if he's still on the call. We know that you guys are piecing together the hack. What is the latest information on return of the DXCC online app? So I've got guys calling me from Kansas City here that are just going, hey, have you heard anything? I've got to add to my honor roll score before I die. So.
Okay. Do you want the short answer or the big answer?
Look, we've had a lot of long answers tonight, Dave, so let's make it short.
All right. The short answer is that DXCC is an application that runs on Windows XP, and we had to air gap the network because there are no modern security solutions that will protect DXCC. That process took a long time. We can't connect Logbook of the World, online DXCC, or the membership system directly to DXCC through a network connection anymore. So the work that was, and when I'm not doing it with SneakerNet, with people running across a room with a USB drive, in any event, that solution took a long time. It went into test 2 weeks ago with the gal that runs it. We put a second person on it last week. I've not gotten to the office. I'll get to the office tomorrow, but the intention is to have it fully running this week. We have about 2,000 transactions in the queue. I know Rick received an email from a guy who's achieved honor roll, and he wants his plaque. He will get his plaque in due time. There's a whole lot of people that are looking for their awards. I haven't even put in my transactions yet, but I finally achieved DXCC Challenge 2000 with some of the latest DXpeditions that will actually QSL. So I appreciate everyone's patience. And we will be sending out, once I get to the office tomorrow and confirm sort of where we're at, we'll put out a member bulletin letting people know what the update is.
That sounds good, David. Yeah, because I got to add to my honor roll count and got to get my challenge in too. So that sounds good. Thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks, Art.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's see, Keith, Debate Zero TJT.
Hi, Art. How you doing tonight? I just wanted to get here and thank you personally for all the help you gave me in that situation that we've talked about with what 3 words. They've come through, as you know, to help us. And I really appreciate your help. And if you see Josh Johnston or you talk to him, tell him too. I really appreciate his help.
A little background, that was to get access to a program, right?
That was to get access to an API that had originally been free, and they wanted to start charging for it, used in my Net Control Manager program. Yes.
Okay, and Josh Johnson helped write a letter and made it
Yep.
go back to free for our use. Thank you very much, Keith, and thanks for reaching out. Cecil, you've got your hand up.
Well, you know, I'm listening to a lot of the stuff here, and you know, there's so much going on right now. I almost hate to even bring this up, but in Missouri, we were going through our digital network book that we do for Aries, and our SEC, Jeff Young, was spearheading that program. and we were updating our communications comm stuff. And one of the things we found was the official emergency stations. The way it's written can be very confusing. We definitely need to revamp that. We need to give that a specific mission and not make it so specific that it can't be flexible and work for everything, but it's kind of willy-nilly the way it's written right now. And I am one of those stations. And so right now, the way we had to do it, we literally had to take it out of the digital portion of the emergency response stuff that we're doing, simply because, and this is a long conversation, but suffice it to say, we need to do some updating, most certainly, and upgrading of our missions for our OES, mainly who they respond to, who they, basically the pecking order. Is it Aries? Is it someone else who activated them? How does this work? And see that we're running into some problems there. So that's one of the things we're doing, and we've got the book, and the book is out already. However, they have already been notified that OES will be coming back into this at the time when we can kind of nail down a few things. And that's field organization. So I'm going to talk to him tomorrow on the phone. The other thing is, we're looking at every one of us has got some kind of issue with that we don't like about the ARRL, something that's happened. Okay. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I've worked a lot of jobs that I love the jobs, but I hated some of the things in it. And Art, you've heard me tell people this at these handfests. I say, look, you can complain about this, and that's fine. You have a right to. I'm not saying it is a bad thing or I'm belittling it, but where will we be without the ARRL period? We won't have our handbands. We won't have stuff because the ARRL is the one doing all the fighting for it. There's nobody else out there fighting for the U.S. stuff, really. And so when they start talking about dues and stuff and the increase, I explained to them why the increase. I explained to them, look, nobody's 100% happy in the world today. And I don't remember them ever being. But how about looking at it from this point of view? If we take the time to make sure that we voice our opinion respectfully to the right people who are supposed to be working for them, and we understand that dues, in the meanwhile, keeps those bands operational and in our hands. They're going after 900 megahertz, going after some HF. It's a reality that, people are out there with knives wanting to whittle away on what we have. So bottom line is, I have found that being directly honest with all of my members has literally turned around the negative thought process for a good deal of the folks that I deal with. And if there's some on here that haven't heard, my information is readily available. Please contact me. I represent you, and I do represent the members, and I do my best to represent them well. However, understand that you may hear the same, this same kind of speech, because the bottom line, we have to save the ARRL. And then once our foundation is solid, then we can grow back. And this is a setback that we had with this hacking, but it's also an opportunity. And you guys are taking this opportunity and doing your best job with it you can. I can see that. Most of the members can see that. So, it's just a matter of, okay, we take a torpedo to the ship. We got to stop the water in the leak. We got to get it going, and we'll be back. We'll be back and going. And no, I'm not from the Navy. I'm an old Marine. But anyway, every time I listen to one of these, I learn a great deal. I learn a great deal from the people who are presenting. I learn a great deal from the people who are asking the questions. And I try to take all this and I try to put it to use in the things that I'm doing with my section here. So, if people's got questions and they're not getting answers, then talk to your section managers. Get them to represent you. If you're having a problem that a section manager won't talk to, then go over their head. I'm not allergic to people saying, well, I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to somebody else. Well, that's fine. That's fine. I will help you if I can. You don't want me to help you. That's choice. Certainly. Here's the number to the ARRL switchboard. Knock yourself out. I'm here to represent you and help you. I'm not here to micromanage you, and I'm not going to do that. I do not micromanage my people that I've got appointments to. They are good people. They're put there for a reason. They do their job. Don't care. Okay. So a lot of pressure has come off since some of this new thinking has come into line for us here. So you guys having these kind of meetings, being willing to stay up till 11, 12 o'clock on the East Coast, talk with us, present to us. It's very valuable information. Everyone on here can learn something from it. The thing about it is, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to get off here, check your bias. Check your bias, open your mind, and let's listen. Now, you may close your mind right back up after you've heard what's said. Not saying that's a bad thing, but give it an opportunity to be heard. And then let's move forward together, because it doesn't matter if we don't do this together, we sink anyway. So it doesn't matter. So there's the end of my rant. Thank you for your time, and all the gentlemen, Rick and I had a stroke, so I lose names. I apologize. Our CEO there. Thank you all for presenting yourself and making yourself available to us. We're very grateful for that.
Thank you, Cecil, very much. I kept thinking when you were talking about the torpedo hit the ship, that there's somebody running around yelling, no, it's a conspiracy. The CEO is just making that all up, or something like that. You got to be very careful with the information that you're hearing. And as we've all said, if you have a question, if you hear something you don't quite think is right, or something that bothers you a lot, call, email any of us, and we'll give you the straight answer, as straight an answer as we possibly can. Thank you, Cecil, and thanks for the kind comments. Let's see, we're an hour and 45 minutes into this. I think it's probably long enough. I think some people are probably already fading away. Let me give a chance for last comments from, let me go to you, Rick, first. Do you have any last comments you'd like to say?
Well, then I really do appreciate being on here tonight, and I loved all the comments, and Art and Dave Proper. I think they do a real good job representing all of you in the boardroom, and I know they work real hard for you, and all the section managers, Lee, Cecil, Ron, and Matt, and the gang up there. You're the field organization, and you're the boots on the ground, as the old saying goes, and y'all are so very, very important for amateur radio, the league, and the future. And we want to support the field organization as much as we possibly can. And I really do appreciate y'all and all the other volunteers that wear an ARRL badge. That means a lot. I want to thank you very much for what you do. And Brett, good job on going from 15 to 100 with your club. You're doing something right. Maybe you need to talk to Mike Walters up at headquarters. We can get you fixed up with him, get your ideas. And but I do appreciate everybody and all that y'all do. It is the greatest hobby, the greatest avocation in the world, in my opinion. And we all have an obligation to keep it going and making sure that somebody is sitting in your seat 50 years from now and 100 years from now. So thanks everyone for staying up late with us, and I really do appreciate it. I appreciate Mr. Minster getting on here too. He and I talk an awful lot. I think he works about 16 hours a day. And Art, I know you do too. Thank y'all very much.
Thanks, Rick. David, would you like any last words?
Yeah, one of the things that Rick had texted me during the call as I was making some comments that I missed, and I apologize. If you this sounds like a commercial, right? If you're 65 years old and you're on a Medicare supplement plan, we just put in a program with a company called Grouper. It is not a scam. It is an opportunity that the Medicare supplement folks know that active retirees are healthier retirees. And they have a program where basically if you align yourself with an organization that causes you to be active in your retirement years, they will help fund your retirement activity. And so ARRL is now an association that is recognized by Grouper. And if you sign up with Grouper, you will receive, just for signing up, a $50 annual benefit. And then every 3 months, you have the opportunity to let them know that you're actually active. You can tell them, I went to a couple club meetings. I went out to field day. I bought and put up a new antenna. Whatever it is, anything that demonstrates that you are continuing to be active, they'll give you an additional $20 per quarter. So that's essentially $130 a year. And surprise, surprise, you can use some of that $130 a year to go and pay for your ARRL membership. And if you want one or more print magazines, whether there are print magazines or somebody else's, you can use that money to get amateur radio publications, books, whatever. So I would encourage you that if especially in your clubs, if you've got some folks in your club that are on Medicare, they're using one of these Medicare supplement plans, to take a look at Grouper, see whether or not your plan is supported. And it's a really simple and great member benefit now that ARRL has aligned with Grouper, you know, it helps fund activities for retirees. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and I will tell you there's so much more to talk about with ARRL. I would have no problem standing up in front of a group of hundreds of people and talk about ARRL and its initiatives and all the rest of that for 3 or 4 hours. There's that much going on. So I would encourage you, as I do in my column every month, to stay radioactive, to take on Rick's challenge and be a connector. Get connected to a new ham, or get connected to someone who needs to get back on the air, and to enjoy amateur radio. Don't allow yourself to get pulled down into the sort of the modern downside of society. Allow yourself to take the time and to enjoy amateur radio, the community, and sort of the little escape from reality that it gives all of us so much pleasure with. So, Art, thank you very much for inviting me.
David, really glad I had you here. A couple of comments is not only getting the new ham in, but make sure you get to know them well enough that you become a friend who helps keep them on the air, keeping them active and growing in the hobby. That's how we keep people around. That's why I'm still here. I'm sure Rick and David could tell similar stories, that there were people who cared, who kept us engaged. The other thing I wanted to mention is I do want to thank all the volunteers. You see our section managers here, there are other appointees. Rick's a volunteer, I'm a volunteer. There are 30,000 volunteers who make ARRL run. And that's why this organization is successful, despite all the occasional bad rumors and conspiracy theories. This is a wonderful organization, does a lot of good, and we're here for you. So, as I said several times, if you got a question, if you got a problem, call, email, Zoom, we'll get it resolved. Thank you so much. And with that, I wish you all a good night, and we'll see you next time. 7-3.
7-3, Art. Thanks.
73, Art. Everybody else.
Good night.